Hey, Steve Stine here from guitarzoom.com, and today we're going to be talking about some fundamentals of learning how to play by ear. We call that ear training. Now, there's a lot of different ways of approaching this, but this is how I learned how to do it when I was younger. And, before there was a YouTube or anything like that, just listening to records and trying to figure out what I was hearing and how to match that on my guitar. And of course, I would use these kinds of techniques with guitar students as well. So I thought it'd be nice to talk to you about. Now, I've recorded two different examples for our ear training today, and I'm going to help you through the first part of each example. But I'm going to leave the second part of each example for you to continue trying to work on. And then, of course, you're going to be able to download these audio files. Somewhere there'll be a link for these audio files for you. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So the first thing is let's go all the way back. So let's say you don't know anything about theory. You don't know what a 1-4-5 is. You don't know any of those kinds of things. We just want to talk about sound and how sound moves and getting comfortable with that. And I'll show you a couple of examples. When I was a kid and I was learning how to play guitar, it was the 80s. And so you'd hear a lot of bands doing, that kind of thing. And I didn't know anything about, keys and what chords were in keys, because when I first started playing, I learned how to play by ear really until I went to college. And so I didn't understand what I was doing, but I understood what I was seeing and what I was hearing. And that's what I want to talk to you about a little bit. So with something like the example I just played for you, what I started realizing was a lot of the rock stuff that I like to listen to tended to move in 2-fret increments, like 1-3-5, 2-4-6, 3-5-7, that sort of thing. So I got used to hearing that sound. Like there, I'm playing chords on the 6th string and the 5th string, but they're existing on 3, 5, and 7, right? Or if I played 1 and 3, that kind of sound, where if I was to play 1 and 2, it sounded a lot different, you see? So that's the kind of music that I grew up playing tended to do that a lot. Now, I'm going to start with the power chord conversation before we move into open chords and things, but I did create two different examples for you. One is a power chord example, and one is a regular example, an open chord example. Now, when I teach this to students, and again, there's only so much time we have together. I do have, courses over at guitarzoom.com that talk about ear training and things like that, but the most important thing with this is that when you first start learning how to do this, if you've never done ear training before, is to use your 6th string, especially like 6-string power chords. Don't worry about major and minor sounds and that sort of thing until you get better at it. So if I think about the power chords on the 6th string, if I start on 0 and go all the way up to 12, no matter what song I'm playing, it has to exist between 0 and 12 on the 6th string as a power chord. Now, originally the song might not be power chords, but when I first start trying to figure this out, this is a great way to just see what I can come up with, okay? So if I think about power chords on the 6th string, the sound moves down or it moves up. So as I'm listening to a song or whatever it is that I'm listening to, a jam or, backing track or whatever it might be, the first thing I want to do is start trying to tell, can I hear that something is moving up or down? So let's take this first example. Let me show you this. Now, it's longer than that. So this is the first advice I want to give you is when you listen to something, the first thing you're going to try and do is find the first chord, the very first chord that you hear in whatever song you're trying to figure out, that very first sound. Try and figure out where that could be. The second part, which is directly related to this, is find the repetition. There's got to be something that's repeating about what you're doing or what you're hearing. So what you do is you start trying to hear when it repeats, and once you've established where the repeat is, how many different sounds are you hearing in that cycle before it repeats? Let me show you again what I mean. We're going to start all over. So as I'm hearing that, I'm thinking, da-na-na-na-na, dun, da-na-na-na-na, dun, and then it starts all over. I'm helping you with the first part of this, okay? So I'm hearing da-na-na-na-na, dun, da-na-na-na-na, dun. So I'm hearing, and again, I've been doing this for a while, and if this is new to you, it's okay. It's just, it takes a while to get used to this. I'm hearing three different sounds. I'm hearing it go down, and then come back up, and then come back up and start all over again. So let me play this again. So this is where sounds equating to color kind of comes in. As I hear these, I'm hearing these. Again, I'm not thinking blue or green or something. I'm just hearing these three different sounds, and I can attach a color to them. So that way, if I hear the color again, I think, oh, so this was green, and this was blue, and this was red, for instance. And then it went back to the blue, and then it went back to the green. So I'm hearing this. I'm hearing this motion going down and then coming back up. And I'm hearing how many different sounds I'm hearing, right? So now I have this cycle or this sequence that happens. How many times does it happen? I don't know, but I am aware that it's repeating, and at some point, something else is going to happen. So the mistake people make when they start learning how to ear train is that they're trying to listen to a song all the way through or taking way too big a chunk and trying to figure it out. The best thing you can do is start with the smallest piece and make it make sense between what you're hearing and what you're playing. So I've now got this cycle. Now again, whether I figure out the cycle by ear, I figure out the first chord, as I was just saying, I don't really have an order in which these two things are going to happen. It depends. If I'm trying to listen to this cycle of information and it's too much, I might have to just go back and just find the first chord and then the second chord and then the third chord and so on. Now, I've got this idea, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. This is kind of what it's doing. But I got to figure out that first sound, so let me go back. So I need to take that sound and burn it into my brain and then go to my guitar and try and figure out where is that. So again, when I'm teaching this to people, when they first start learning how to do this, sometimes what they're doing is they don't even really know the song or the progression they're trying to figure out, and they're going, and they're just, the song's playing and playing and playing, and they're just trying to figure things out. Well, there's no rhyme or reason. Like, even if you got a chord right, you wouldn't know which chord it was you got right because you're just kind of trying to find anything at any point in time. The key is to just take something and burn that idea into your head. And then you go to your guitar now, are they the same? And the answer is no. What I have to identify is what I'm hearing, is that lower or higher than what I'm playing? You see, as opposed to just running around trying to do this, I want to try and figure it out. Like, I'm hearing this color in my brain, and now I need to find it on the guitar. That's what I need to do. So it's at the 5th fret. Listen to this. You hear that? So now you would know that that first chord is the 5th fret. And you know that it goes down. Down. So the question's going to be, how far down does it go? If you're on the 5th fret of the 6th string, how far down do you need to go to get to the next chord? And then the next chord. You see? And instead of just guessing, you just keep trying to dial in each chord. And as you get better at this, you'll start figuring out how to hear this cycle, this section, right? That's what you're looking for. So with this particular track, which again I'm going to give you, you've got this first part here, and then there's actually a second part, which I'm going to clue you in, uses the same chords. So if you figure out the first part of this, the second part uses the same chords, but in a different order. That's what I'm going to give you to work on. okay? So just using power chords. So again, don't just jump for things and move around and play music and try and figure things out. Keep trying to dial in the color of that sound in your head, and then go to your guitar and start figuring out how to make them become one and the same thing. This isn't easy. For some people, it's very, very difficult. For some people, they have a sense in their brain that they're able to do this. It's one of those things. Some people have to struggle with it to really figure it out. But if you eliminate the obvious problems of trying to do things too fast or listen to too much at once or try and, whatever these things are, don't do that. Just start with something over and over and over. I just listen to that and dial that into my head and then go to my guitar and find it. Okay? Now again, I've been doing this for a while, and of course I made the track, so I know what it is. But just to give you an idea. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the second track. So I'm going to go over to clean channel here and do this quick. Now, shouldn't have done that, but we'll work with this one. So again, this one's the same thing. There's two parts to it. I'm going to show you the beginning of the first part, and then you can work on the second part. Now, when you get to open chords, this is a little bit harder because G, for instance, might sound lower than C for somebody, but for somebody it might not. It kind of depends. Where when you're playing power chords, you can tell that they're lower and higher by the way they move. But G, to D or something like that, does it sound lower or higher to you? I don't know. Like for me, it does. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rely on my experience of playing chords to tell me a little bit, like as I'm listening to these, can I tell the difference between a major and a minor sound? I could still approach this from a power chord perspective, please understand, but I'm just giving you another example to try and work with here. So we're going to play open chords, but if you were struggling with these open chords, you could go back to the power chord thing, figure it out, and then convert them into open chords. And that's a great way of doing that too. So let's listen to the beginning of this track. So I spent a lot of time on these two chords. Do you hear that? One chord. So, of course, in order to figure this out, I would have to know some open chords. Like if I don't know any chords, I probably shouldn't be working on ear training in the first place, right? There's probably more important things I should be doing. But if I know some open chords, what I could do then is go to my guitar and try and figure out, like, what does that first chord sound like to me? And again, same thing. Play it over and over. Get the sound in your head. Get the color in your head. It's a G. G is the most common key we play in when we play open or cowboy chords. They're called. G is a very common chord. But I know that sound. It's a nice big full sound. And again, if I'm playing G but I'm not hearing the sound of G, there's a problem there. That's why it always has to start with what you're hearing, not what you're playing. Like you've got to learn to burn that sound into your brain and then go to your guitar and make it make sense to you. And this stuff can take a little time. So once we've got that, then we have to ask ourselves, well, what could the next chord potentially be? And if you've played songs before, or you've been playing guitar for a little while, you might have some ideas in your mind of what the next logical chord would be. If you were playing a G, and you're watching this right now, what do you think the next chord could be if your first chord was G? Right? You might be saying C. You might be saying D, right? You might be saying E minor, depending on what you know about this. It takes a little while to get used to that. Now, again, I don't want to give you the answer. I want you to try and work with this a little bit. We know this first chord is G, because I've told you that. So the question is, what's that? Now it repeats. So here's our cycle. We're doing it again. Here comes the second part, though. So it changes there. That's another thing that you need to be aware of as you're listening to something and you hear this repetitive cycle, this idea. When something else happens, you have to be aware to go, okay, I need to shut it off and figure out that first part. Before I ever worry about this next part, I need to figure out that first part. Well, the cycle of the first part is 2 chords. That's all it is 2 chords. And it gets repeated twice. So I could work on the first, whatever it is, 10 seconds of this song or however long this is, right? And develop that. And then here comes the next cycle of this song. There's something different there. Well, what is this difference? If it's different, we're not going back to G, probably, right? I mean, we could, but in this case, I hear a different sound right off the bat. So what is this different sound? Well, it's probably not G and C because it's a different sound. So what am I hearing? And again, if you have any experience with learning some songs and stuff, the first thing you might ask yourself is, does it sound higher or lower? Does it sound major or minor? Maybe you can tell the difference between those things a little bit. And you keep trying to dial that in. Now, again, I don't want to make this a super long lesson, but I wanted to get you started so you kind of understand how to do this. So the song doesn't have to be power chords to learn the song by using the power chord method. You might have open chords like in this song, but still use the power chord method to figure those out because that works better in your mind. I would go to a clean channel. It would make more sense than having a bunch of distortion and stuff like that. I would kind of match the sound a little bit so it makes it easier for me. And so that's what some students would do is they'd go, oh, it sounds like that. But I can hear that it's an open chord. So what is this? Well, it's a G. Okay, well, there's G. Okay, now I'm on the board. Now maybe that's enough information to go, well, what's the next chord going to be? Does that make sense? Hopefully that helps you a little bit. But again, I've got learning materials on this stuff. If you head over to guitarzoom.com, there's all kinds of things that we have that can help you with this sort of thing. All right? Thank you for watching this video. If you're enjoying this video and you'd like to support the channel so we can continue to bring you more free content, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications and let me know what you think in the comments below. Also, if you'd like more in-depth training and courses, go to guitarzoom.com and get started for free today.